Despite the troubles they've had with missing episodes, putting episodes out of order, and even using this promo art, HBO Max finally did something right. No, I'm not talking about the Snyder Cut. They even dropped the ball on that. This week, we're talking about a funeral.
Jack Kirby imagined bigger than any of us. He made us see the world the way he did, and the way he saw the world was unique. He was the father of modern comics, but that's almost besides the point. He touched us personally with his stories, and made us dream and wonder with him. Everything he did, he made his own, so completely his own in every case. The Kirby version is somehow definitive. He was the first artist whose work I could recognize. His passing ends an era.
For those who aren't in the know, it's almost impossible to highlight just how much of an impact Jack Kirby had on the world of comics. Among many others, he was responsible for the Avengers, the X-Men, but perhaps most importantly for this video, Darkseid and the New Gods. It's pretty common knowledge today that Bruce Timm takes great inspiration from Jack Kirby, but that wasn't always the case. While Kirby had been an active comics artist dating all the way back to the 30s, Timm being born in 1961 meant it took some time for him to find and eventually appreciate his work. From his recollection,
the very first time I saw Jack Kirby was probably the Marvel Superheroes show, an adaptation of the first Sleeper story they did in Captain America. They just took still images from the comics and put them on cells and just kind of pulled the background.
By the time Bruce was 13 years old, he had received his first Kirby comics, a Marvel's Greatest Comics reprint with the first Black Panther story, a couple of Mr. Miracles, and The Demon. Even then, it took time for the admiration to finally click. There were periods where Timm would analyze his art and think,
it's pretty good, but if only it wasn't as weird and abstract. If only he had a better inker.
Every time I'd get a Jack Kirby comic, I'd go, it's kind of cool, but it's really weird. It's like the drawing is really weird. I know anatomy doesn't look like that. I know people don't have square jaws and, weird mouths and big spacey eyes.
It wasn't until his early 20s that Bruce felt like he began to understand where Kirby was coming from. Fast forward a few more years. That young boy who used to scoff at the weird and abstract nature of Kirby's composition is now working on animated comic book shows, much like the ones he used to watch as a child, surrounded by writers, artists, and other colleagues who all hold a respect for Kirby. Not only is Bruce Timm surrounded, but he's also actively pushing Kirby onto younger storyboard artists.
This is an example of good staging. This is an example of a good roundhouse punch. This is an example of a good explosion.
Despite living about a 5-minute drive from each other, the two never connected on a personal level higher than quick meets at conventions.
Oh, Jack, I just wanted to shake your hand and tell you I think you're wonderful.
Looking back, Timm would express regret for never making a point to introduce himself. Following Kirby's death in 1994, and due to the planned presence of Jack's Fourth World characters, Bruce Timm and the rest of the Superman the Animated Series crew sought to memorialize him in the show. Bruce Timm enlisted the help of Shane Glines to come up with a design that took the balding, bowler hat wearing, cigar smoking police sergeant Dan Turpin from Kirby's New Gods #5 and mold his image into something more reminiscent of a character you'd see a few pages later in the same issue, Jack Kirby himself. As Alex Ross put it in the Krypton Companion,
he was very close to Kirby as a man when Kirby did it. Then when he was animated, they treated him as Kirby.
Naturally, as the series progressed, Dan's appearances became bookended with ties to Darkseid and the New Gods, both being introduced in the series in the episode Tools of the Trade, and ultimately in Apokolips Now, Dan meeting his end following the attempted invasion of Darkseid. Despite the impact that Kirby's death had on the show crew, directly reinterpreting his death wasn't initially part of the plan for his character. When putting together the story for Apokolips Now, Bruce Timm was very much against the idea of Superman being the hero, and instead opted for a story that highlighted humanity's power to combat Darkseid, an all-powerful force intended to embody the evils of unbridled capitalism and dictatorial fascism. With this desire to focus on mankind working together for a common good, Dan Turpin's inclusion in the episode became a clear choice. Wanting to mirror Turpin's skirmish with Calabac from The New Gods #8, Bruce's original ending for the episode would would have still seen Turpin defy Darkseid, but this time, rather than involving the New Gods coming to Earth for backup, Darkseid more or less would have gone, I really want this planet, I don't want to just destroy it, so you win! An ending that was deemed as a bit too anticlimactic. As talks continued, Tim eventually brought up the idea of killing off a recurring member of the cast.
You know what? What he's got to do after Superman has defeated him, Darkseid has got to kill someone who's very close to Superman, just out of pure spite.
Yeah, that's the way to go. So, who's he gonna kill?
I mean, originally, Paul and I wanted to kill Ma and Pa Kent. And
Yeah.
DC Comics said, well, you can, but you have to bring him back. We said, nah, whoever we kill, we want to keep him dead.
Professor Hamilton was briefly considered before the crew determined that due to their dislike for the character, it might not pack the emotional weight they were hoping to achieve.
We said, who should we kill then? And then we realized it had to be Turpin because it had to be a character that we really liked.
It was one of those weird things. Kirby had just died within the past year or two, and Paul and I had gone to his funeral, so the minute we realized it should be Turpin, it was, well, that's what we have to do. We have to kill him.
After Turpin was decided on, there were still some issues with getting his death past the censors. In interviews we recently conducted with the episode's director, Dan Reba, and scriptwriter, Rich Fogel, that one will be out soon, they revealed that the reason Turpin's death was portrayed similarly to how Darkseid transported Bruno Mannheim to Apokolips in previous episodes was due to network pushback. In order to ease the concerns, series producer Alan Burnett promised, we'll bring him back sometime, a promise that nobody on the team had any intention to follow through on due to concerns of cheapening the impact. From there, work was put in to make sure that the emotional weight of the episode respectfully paid tribute to Jack. Given that the two lived so close to each other, Bruce drove past Kirby's grave on an almost daily basis. And one Sunday morning, he decided to stop by to take photos for reference on the episode's final scene. During production, there was anxiety around the idea of airing the episode and potentially causing pain to Jack's widow, Roz Kirby. Those fears were never fully realized as Roz unfortunately passed away 2 months prior to the show airing.
I'm sure Jack's death was a really horrible thing for her. They were so close for so many years, but she might have realized it was a touching tribute. She might have seen it in that respect. In a way, it was probably a blessing that she never got to see it.
February 14th, 1998. The second part of Apokolips Now aired, and viewers were shown Dan Turpin's funeral, Jack Kirby's funeral. If you've never had it pointed out before, it could be easy to miss. Alongside the characters that were present for narrative reasons, such as Lois, Jimmy, and others, Bruce Timm added quite a few cameos to the storyboards that weren't even in the script, including Kingdom Come artist Alex Ross and his father, Clark Norman Ross, who some may recognize as the character Norman McKay from Kingdom Come, Bruce Timm himself, Glenn Murakami, Dan Reba, Paul Dini, Big Barda, Orion, Mr. Miracle, Goody Rickles, who in turn is based off of comedian Don Rickles, Funky Flashman, or Stan Lee's first DC cameo, Alan Burnett, Kamandi, a member of Kirby's Newsboy Legion, Nick Fury, the Fantastic Four, Captain America, Iron Man, and writer Mark Evanier, who was at one point Jack Kirby's production assistant. According to Rich Fogel during our interview, it wasn't expected that the animators would follow the board layouts precisely. So when the footage came in, everyone was a little surprised that all the cameos were still intact, but decided to run it as is. Despite the cameos being brief and the characters being unrecognizable to the general audience due to a lack of costumes, over time, the situation made Warner Bros. Lawyers a bit nervous. And as a result, later airings and the DVD release looked a bit different. While this new version of the episode's end completely changed the lineup of the funeral, it did keep the end card dedicating the episode to Jack Kirby. As a result of the change, fans, both old and new, held curiosity as to whether or not they'd ever be able to see the original again. Retakes aren't uncommon in animation, and this had happened multiple times in the DCAU already at this point. While some of these have become accessible through modern HD releases, there are still some, like Harley and Ivy in their underwear during holiday night, that may never see the light of day. As far as official acknowledgement of this scene goes, the closest we'd ever gotten since the initial airing was the 2006 Krypton Companion from Tomorrow's Publishing, which featured labeled samples from Bruce Timm's original storyboard art. When it was announced that Superman the Animated Series was coming to HBO Max for the first time in HD HD, there was a little bit of buzz from fans wondering which version of the scene would be attached. Lo and behold, despite the concern of corporate lawyers decades earlier, we were greeted with this. Of course, with these additions now being more or less canonized, I'm sure some people in our audience will want videos explaining how they can all fit the DCAU. Why weren't Steve Rogers and Tony Stark recruited in Justice League Unlimited? Were the terrific trio inspired by the in-universe Fantastic Four? Is Nick Fury part of Cadmus? And maybe that'll happen someday? I don't know. Right now just doesn't really feel like the time. To be honest, I don't know how this happened, or if it will even stay this way. Obviously, I'm not privy to any inside information on the matter, but something tells me this was the result of the team working on the remaster, not fully understanding the history behind this scene, and just slipping it back in due to the fact that it was the original footage that they were working with. After all, they completely dropped the Kirby dedication card, and I can't imagine anybody doing that had they been aware of what was going on in the scene. It's clear that there are some things that need to be sorted out with this remaster of Superman the Animated Series before it hits a physical release. I mean, there's a whole 20 seconds or so in the series debut 3-parter where the remaster team just kind of forgot to put the scene background art back in place, so we have Lex talking to a green screen for the duration of that time. It's possible that there are even some other things that need to be tweaked as well. Who knows if the lawyers will get nervous again. Hopefully, the final version of this remaster will keep the scene and return the dedication card. Only time will tell. In the meantime, it's just a relief to have this piece of cartoon and comics history preserved better than it ever has been before in full HD rather than a VHS recording with channel logos on the art. Thanks for that, HBO Max, and long live the king. I want to go ahead and thank Owen from Owen Likes Comics for doing the Neil Gaiman stuff at the start. Gaiman, what? Use them both. I want to thank Troyo Boyo 17, Fanboy Rewrites, Fanboy Pre-Writes, Helen of Troy for being our Bruce Timm. Of course, you know, the patrons. Throw the music on! Jason Connerly, welcome. Thanks for becoming a patron. Digital Jedi Master, Mark, I don't know why you're giving us money. You do work for us, but we'll take the money. And then the people we always have to shout out. Mac, Aaron Young, Cameo Shadowness, Dark Poet. No, Dark Poet's not on there anymore. Oh my God. Come back to us, Dark Poet. I love you. I miss you. Luke Mears, Robert Sterling, and Richard Montveld. Love all of y'all. Thanks for everything that y'all do for us. Those of you that are still sticking around, if you don't know, we got a Patreon. Patreon.com/DCAU Watchtower. Throw us a couple bones over there. You get some stuff. There's a lot of stuff. Lots of stuff. Custom artwork, virtual hangouts with us, getting your name said. Just a lot of stuff over there. There's so much stuff. That all being said, I've been Maddie Washburn. This is the Watchtower Database. What was it? Oh my God, we'll continue to say those things. Yeah, that's the catchphrase. God damn it. You take 2 years off from the Vanishing Point and you forget what the Vanishing Point's even about. I've been Maddie Washburn. This has been the Watchtower Database. We'll continue to say those things so long as you continue to stay you. Like, subscribe, comment down below. Tell me how many dads you've kissed over quarantine. I hope the answer is somewhere from 0 to 1, being maybe your own dad if you're living with them, but if you're not living with them, don't kiss people you ain't living with right now. I need to sign up and get my vaccine.